Hello everyone. Today we're going to paint this super simple raven painting, and today I'm going to use my Frederick's 11 by 14 inch Convexo oval canvas, but as always you're free to use any size or shape of canvas that you like. Now I'm going to start with my 1-inch flat brush and a mixture of just black and white for a nice light gray color. I have a little bit of matte medium just for blending purposes, but it's not required if you don't want to use it. And I'm just going to cover this canvas with a fairly even mixture of this gray color. I believe I go a little bit darker toward the left side of the canvas. Now this painting is pretty simple. I think that this is a great painting for beginners. If you've never painted before, this would be a really good introduction to it. And even if you've been painting for a while, I think that this painting offers some opportunities where you can really open up and use some of your skills and, add details and elements that I haven't added and just really make the painting your own. Again, this painting could be done on a rectangle canvas or square canvas, whatever. I thought that the oval, especially sideways like this, would be a really unique and fun look for this painting. So that's why I went with the oval canvas. If you are interested in trying the oval canvases, there is a link in the video description below to where you can get your very own Frederick's Convexo canvases. I think that they're a lot of fun. I have a couple left. So I'm going to see if I can find something that would look really cool on them for those last two canvases. Once I'm done covering this background, I'm not going to wait for it to dry. I'm just going to move right on. And I'm going to use my fan brush, wet it in my jar. Remember that this fan brush holds a lot more water than you think it does. So I'm just going to tap it on a towel before I use it. I'm going to load up with black. It's picking up some white in that mixture, but essentially it's almost black, very, very dark gray. Stab the brush so it breaks up a little. And I'm just going to kind of brush in some little kind of sticky bits from the edges there. Maybe to indicate some branches or something in the distance that are blurred out. I'm using a very light touch. If you put a lot of pressure, you're really just going to coat the canvas with that dark color. And because I didn't let the background dry all the way, sometimes this black, this super dark gray is blending with the background. But in some places, and as I go, the gray has dried and it's not blending, but it's creating little fuzzy lines, the fan brush is, and that's okay. Don't be put off if you're getting little fuzzy lines with the fan brush. That's just going to help add to kind of that blurred out distance effect, a little bit of a bokeh effect. Do as much of this as you like. I pretty much kept it on about the left 3/4 of the canvas, but you could do it all the way around. You could do it just in one area, whatever you like. See, sometimes I'm going to the edge of the brush and really pulling out those long, thin, kind of spiky bits of the lines. It's just all going to look like growth and tree branches and, whatever else might be in the scene. I'm just going to lighten that gray a bit to transition out of the color. So I'm bringing that over here to this side that's going to be a little bit lighter. This is where my moon is going to be. A little bit more white. Same thing though. And again, I'm just using a little bit of matte medium because I like the consistency that it lends to the paint, not because it's required. You don't have to use matte medium. Okay, I cleaned off my fan brush and I'm just picking up black. I'm just going to darken some of that distant growth, blurred out plants, whatever it is. I'm just going to make a couple areas that are quite dark. Most of my underpainting, that gray, is dry now, so these lines are coming out very fuzzy, and I liked that. And I just keep mentioning that because I know a lot of times people get frustrated when their brush marks are fuzzy. And I just want you to know that the fuzz here is perfectly okay. Just keep your brush pressure soft. I'm only using the very tip of the fan brush. I'm not pressing it flat at all. All right, I'm not going to wait for any of that to dry. I'm just going to go to my 1/2 inch flat, and I'm just picking up white. There's a hint of gray in there still. And I'm just going to freehand a circle, and I know that that freaks a lot of you out. You're not comfortable freehanding a circle, but really there's no sense in trying to, trace on a perfectly round circle, because I'm going to fuzz all of these lines out. It won't matter if it's not perfectly circle. Right now I'm just getting it as close to perfectly circle as I can freehand, and fill that in. And then you can take just a little bit of matte medium or water. I'm using matte medium. And I'm going to soften the edge of the moon until you can't see it. So there's a bit of matte medium, and just very lightly with the tip of my brush running over the edge of the moon. And like I said, you can do that with water. But fuzzing out that line is going to help it so that if your moon isn't perfectly round, it's not even going to show. You can't even tell. Back into some pure white, just start brightening it up in the middle there. But the paint was starting to get pretty thick, so I do have to take a break here in just a second and dry it. I need that moon to be perfectly dry before I can get it to be actually white. So here we're going to dry it, just the moon. Back into some pure white paint, and I'm going to fill that in again, keeping those edges nice and soft. We just want this moon to really seem like it's glowing, so we're not going to spend time and put detail into it or anything. So this is my third version of Midnight Raven, and everyone I do, I think, okay, this is my favorite one, but this is really my favorite one. And I'm sure maybe next year or the year after we'll do another Midnight Raven. It's kind of a theme I like to do. In fact, I believe Midnight Raven was my very first painting, my very first video I did on YouTube. All right, I've got that moon pretty well filled in. All right, I'm onto my 1/2 inch angle, and I'm just picking up black, and I'm gonna start laying in my main branches. That moon is still wet. So as I'm going, I'm gonna pick up a little bit of that white, and that's okay. If your moon is wet or dry, it doesn't matter. If you pick up some of that white and transfer it to your branches, you're just adding some easy highlights, so don't worry about it either way. Just widen that out. Notice how I'm letting my brush wiggle so the branch has a little bit of a natural shape to it. And see, I transferred some of that white, and it doesn't even matter. So there's my main branch. And the raven. Notice how quickly and confidently I'm blocking him in. And it's not because I'm super practiced at painting ravens like this. It's because I just went for it. So you just go for it. Have confidence in yourself. Have confidence in your abilities. The stiffer you make him look by getting in there and drawing him perfectly, the stiffer he's going to look. But if you just go for it, he's going to look like he's part of the scene. I mean, look at how quickly I blocked him in there. And that was just deciding that I had the confidence to do it. And I just decided to accept however he comes out looking. And that's how I got my raven so quickly like that, okay? So don't spend a lot of time trying to trace him or, you know, sketch him out perfectly, because I really find that the more energy I put into doing things like that, the stiffer my drawings look. Now I'm going to add some more branches. See how jagged that branch is? That's from using my angle brush and doing it nice and quick. Notice I'm just putting the pressure on the tip of the angle. Not trying to make perfect branches here. Again, trying to make perfect branches is going to make very stiff branches. Just get in there and just be sketchy and just accept what happens. If you get a little bit of a branch that gets away from you and goes outside of the line, just take that as an opportunity to create another branch. Think of this as an old gnarly tree. An old gnarly tree isn't going to have soft, swoopy, perfectly smooth branches. All right, I just picked up a little bit of white and I'm just kind of feeling out where I want some highlights on my bird. I know I'm not married to any of these highlights. If I don't like something, I can just put black right back over top of it. So I'm just going to add some, and then I'll sit on that for a minute and decide what I like and what I don't like about it later. Just use a clean, damp brush there to wipe away a bit that got outside. Long liner, and I'm going to sketch in just a few more branches. I do end up abandoning my long liner here in just a minute. I felt like it was a little premature to bust out the long liner, but I add some. If you're trying to get long, thin branches with a long liner, just add a little extra water into your paint. If you have some fluid paints like soft body, that's going to be a little bit easier to get little tiny detail lines with the long liner. But if you're using heavy body like me, then just add a tiny bit more water to your paint. Even some branches coming in from the other side. Now I'm on to it's either my number 5 or my number 6 round. I can't remember. It really doesn't matter. I just grabbed a brush and I'm going to add a few more branches. Again, notice how loose I'm being with that, letting the brush kind of zig and zag and make unevenly shaped branches, and just really letting the brush do the work. I'm not trying to control what the branches look like, really. Here I'm going to start adding some little dried leaf ends. So I'm kind of pulling a branch out and then kind of bouncing the brush so that it flattens out and creates a little bit of a leaf shape. And I really did the first one by accident. That's not something I had planned on doing. But when I did that first one, I liked it, so I decided, okay, I'm going to do those all over and give a little bit of life to the trees. Maybe they're little flower buds or, you know, whatever you want to interpret them as, berries or something. And I felt like this was a good companion piece to last week's painting of the Crimson Forest. Maybe this bird is sitting on one of those trees that's off in the distance or off to the side in the Crimson Forest painting. That's a really simple way to make leaves. Just kind of bounce the brush and let the shape of the brush make the shape of the leaf. Kind of takes pressure off from, you know, figuring out what leaf shape to make and then trying to make sure that each of your leaf shapes are about the same. Just bounce the brush and then you're done. If you want a bigger leaf, use a bigger brush. If you want a smaller leaf, use a smaller brush. Explore the different types of brushes you have, because each brush is going to make a different shape of a leaf. And maybe you don't want to use your round brush to do that. Maybe you like the way your filbert or what's it called, a deer stamper or some other kind of brush. Maybe you like the shape that that makes instead of the round. A little bit of a gray color. And I'm just going to mess with the highlights on our raven again. I started out kind of adding some detail to the face. At least I wanted to see an eye, but then as I went along I decided that's too much and I didn't like that, so I painted it out. But here again, I'm just feeling out where I want the highlights to be. Then pick up some black and knock out the ones that I don't like. You really can go back and forth on this as much as you want. The important part is that at some point you kind of stop and let it dry, because you don't want your raven to turn gray, just become gray. So let it dry and then come back and play with those highlights a little bit more again. But don't just smear colors together over and over and over until everything becomes a gray fog. See, I'm trying to be really loose with how I slash these, the black and the gray on there. I'm not trying to paint in specific feathers. Just reshaping him just a little bit. All right, now I've got my Purell red. This is the red I used in the Crimson Forest, but as always, guys, you can use any color you want. I'm just gonna do that same bounce on top of my leaves to add some color. Please remember that you are never required to use the colors that I use. You know, if you don't have a color that I'm using, there's no reason that you have to struggle to try and make that color or struggle to try and find that color or feel like you have to run out and spend money on another color. Use what you have and use what you like. I mean, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm just using a color that I like, that I think will look good. But just because it's a color I use doesn't mean it's the only color that can be used. It doesn't mean it's the right color. It's the color I chose. And the color you chose will be just fine too. But I am putting that Purell on every leaf in varying degrees. Some of them are getting a thicker application, some are getting less. Sometimes the Purell completely covers the black. Sometimes the Purell's kind of off to the side of it. Now I picked up some Cad Red Light, and I'm doing the same thing. However, I'm not going to put the Cad Red Light on every leaf. Some of them I'm just going to leave in the Purell. And again, sometimes it's kind of off center, and you can see the black and or the red underneath it. Just loosely daubing it on there, wherever I feel like it should be. So these are the same colors I used in the Crimson Forest. So if you painted the Crimson Forest and you didn't use my same colors, maybe you use the same colors that you used in your Crimson Forest to do this painting. Back into a dark gray. This was where I decided to try and give him a little personality in his face, maybe pull his eye, so that you could see it. But I didn't like that, so I ended up painting it out. Just for as loose as the rest of the bird felt, the face felt like too much. I do want to keep just a little bit of a highlight on the beak. See, that's way too aggressive. So some black paint, and we'll just wipe it out. Just a hint of some highlight on the tail. Touch that up in the wing. Kind of scumbling it a little bit. A little black to knock back the parts that were too much. And I'm pretty happy with him, so I'm going to sign it. And that's all there is to this painting. It's very, very simple. And thank you so much to my awesome sponsor, Fredericks, for providing this canvas. It is so much fun to paint on these canvases. And thank you to all of you for painting and hanging out with me every week. I'll see you next time.